All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get us started here. Welcome, everyone. I'm sure people will probably still be trickling in and out, but we're going to go ahead and rock and roll. So, hi, everyone. I am Ranger Althynia, otherwise known as Althynia O'Donnelly. I almost want to say longtime CitrusCon attendee and panelist. And then I second that, and I'm like, wait, yes, no, that's actually correct. I have been attending CitrusCon since the start and been presenting since the second one. I am a Twitch streamer when I actually get around to doing it. I am an author, I draw, I play games, I do all sorts of fun stuff like that. Woo, yes. Good stuff. So, how this panel is going to work. Of course, obviously, we are going to be doing some co-writing. We are going to be doing some discussing. Of course, I do have questions as part of my slides here, but if you do have some, please don't be afraid to put them in chat. We'll try to get to them as we can. We will flip between discussion and doing the sprints, but we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to our first one. So, just a little bit, I just went into for who I am. Another thing to know is, besides being an author and a streamer, I am a mental health therapist as my day job, my main job. So you'll probably notice some of my therapy talk in the way I talk, so just a warning about that. I try to not do that, but it slips out now and again. Then, of course, I'm a BL fangirl, have been for many, many years, ever since I was in high school, so. Been a card carrying Fujo for a long time. And the two logos you see there, one is for my Twitch channel, which of course is where I'm Ranger Althynia. The other is for my Celestial Rose Studio, which is of course my, I guess you could call it creative studio that I do my book through, and I do some of my other art and work through. Therapy is not involved in any of that. So I can't get away without talking about my book, of course, real quick. CitrusCon has played a huge part in this book, actually, because the last two CitrusCons, I had introduced the cover one year, and then last year I introduced the fact I was going to be releasing it as a web novel. And then now this year I am introducing, or I've released it as a paperback and an ebook. So seems like CitrusCon plays a big role in everything I do with this book. So just a little bit about it. It is a book I have been working on for 21 years. So it's old enough to drink. F in chat for my age, and just aging myself here. Yes. It does have two different summaries. You'll notice one that's on the back of the paperback, and then the one I utilize for the web novelization. No age shame here, right? I am proudly in my 30s. Thank you very much. So, it is about my lovely boys, Ashura and Faisal. They are the loves of my life, that outside of my husband. They are my babies. They are my blurbos. They are everything to me. Some of you had questions about it. BLP Team Unite. How long did it take to come up with the idea and narrow it down to something workable? So, when it comes to Hidden, and I'll talk a little bit more about this a little bit later in writing, but for Hidden in particular, the actual serious answer was 3 days. Because I was insane in 2005, and I learned about NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, literally 3 days before it started. I went, I want to do that. And so I did, and came up with the idea for this book literally in those 3 days, and then wrote it in 50 days, or 30 days rather. It wasn't very good back then, though. It's a lot better now. And actually, let me put that question back to you guys, those of you that are writing. How long did it take you to come up with your ideas for maybe the project you're working on today? How does it work to stream right without having it work? Let me put a pin on that, Andrea, if you could save that question for me. We'll get to that when we talk about the writing portion. And what was harder, coming up with the plot or creating the characters? So fun fact, Ash and Faisal existed before the novel did, and before the plot idea did. Because I used to actually, I created Ash to be a role-playing character. So I would role-play him in games with friends of mine. And I created Faisal as a fanfiction character, actually. No, I am not sharing my fanfiction.net account. Good luck. And then I decided when I wanted to write the novel, I'm just going to take these two characters, I'm going to mash them together and see how they work together, and they work very well, actually. So there we go. So creating the characters was actually the easy part. The plot was a little bit harder because I was coming up with it on the fly. The plot ended up being a lot easier the second go around when I rewrote it, but we'll get to that in a moment. But yes, this is my novel, Hidden Report. I love it. It released yesterday. You can see here all the places you can find it. If you're someone who prefers to read it as a web novel, you can starting tomorrow actually find it on, and I'm going to butcher the name of this poor site. I am so sorry. Chrysanthemum Garden. It is releasing for the first time on there, but you can actually currently find it on Royal Road and AO3. If you are someone who would rather own a physical copy or the ebook of it and would like to financially support the author, which I always appreciate, you can order it at a local bookstore, Barnes & Noble. You can order it through my website. Smashwords has it as well as an ebook. Just a lot of different places to find it. You can only order it online and through your local bookstores currently because there's no place stocking it in person. Yes, but you have to order it through the website. You can't, or you have to go in and ask them to order it for you. Currently. My hope and dream is to eventually get Barnes & Noble to actually stock it on their shelves, but I think Barnes & Noble does. Hey, I have hopes it will one day. That said, if you are in the US and want a signed copy of the book, go through my website. If you don't care whether it's signed, going through Barnes & Noble is probably your better bet. All right. That's enough about that, but well, actually, no, it's not, because guess what? Now I get to talk about my characters because, hey, this is my panel. I get to do what I want. Because you're going to hear these names a lot throughout my talking about my books and my writing style and everything else, because these are my Borbos. These are my two mains of my book, Ashura and Faisal. Ash is the main character of the book. Main things to know about him: he is a special agent, has been for several years. I swear he's a lunatic in some regards. He's a sweetheart, a little temperamental, a little too prideful, but he's my cutie. And then we have Faisal, who is our love interest. He is a chemist who he prioritizes taking care of his family, in particular his little sister, and he is a well-meaning idiot. Is the best way I can put it. And as we talk, I'll probably throw in a little bit more lore about them and everything just as we go, but I don't want to stick on this too long because I'm sure you guys would like to talk more about actual writing and not just about me. But if there's anything you guys want to know about the books, please feel free to ask. I love talking about them. I love having an excuse talking about them because they are my world. What is the citrus scale? Oh, the citrus scale. I love the citrus scale. It's the scale of spice. Oh, what is it on the citrus scale? It would be lemon. It would be considered a lemon. It's not quite unhinged enough for grapefruit. At least not the first book, anyway. Oh yes, that is the other part that I forgot to mention. Hidden Report is book 1. There are 5 books slated. 3 novels, 2 anthologies. So the fun doesn't finish at the end of Hidden. So, let's get into some discussion. Let's get into some of these questions that you guys gave to me. And of course, again, if you have more, please put them in chat. How long have you been writing BL? All right, guys, how long have we been writing for? As for me, this question is actually really hard to answer because I had a massive gap in writing time. I started writing BL probably in 2004 and stopped around 2009. So there was 5 years there. And then I didn't write for a long time because of reasons that I'll go into later. But I didn't start really again, writing-wise, until 2022. I took a massive break because of life stuff, the story I'll share later, just a lot of reasons I took that massive break. So realistically, my writing, BL writing at least, is probably about 9 years. But prior to that, I did write romance, just it wasn't BL. If I want to include that, that would probably add another 6 years. No, 6. Probably another 10 years. Let me do some math here. 4, 8. So about 18, 19 years, roughly. Seeing some people started in high school. You wrote BL before you knew what gay people were. I love that. Started in middle school. Amazing. Okay, good. I'm not the only one that started in the early 2000s. And then our next question is, what makes you happiest from it? What makes us happy about writing BL? I think for me, what makes me happiest is being able to just generally create stories that are fulfilling. Like, don't get me wrong, I like romance, but there's just something different about writing BL. In particular, writing about my 2 characters, there's just something about it that, like, it feels better, it feels good, it feels comfortable in a way that my previous writing doesn't and didn't have. And I think it's probably for me because I'm just passionate about them and about their story, that it just makes me happy anytime I write about them. And that includes my AUs I've written for them or am writing for them, the main story, because yes, I have multiple AUs for these guys, by the way. I have an Omegaverse AU, I have a Guideverse AU, I'm eventually going to have a serial killer stalker AU. Like, I have all of the stories for these guys. I may or may not start posting them on AO3, maybe, possibly, eventually. We'll see. How would I describe the difference between romance and BL? I mean, I want to make a joke about the obvious, that BL involves more peens, but I think there's fundamentally a difference between the kind of romance and how it's perceived. Like, a lot of het romance is very heteronormative in a way, which is funny because I think we talked about this during this panel last year. Versus in BL, that, like, there still is heteronormativity involved in it in a lot of senses, even in mine, but I think it's less. And I think there's generally a lot more room for, like, diversity of types of characters, of tropes, of gender norms, and relationship roles, and, like, just certified hetero romance that's worth reading about. Yeah, like, don't get me wrong, like, I would read Harlequin romances constantly in middle school and high school. But, like, now, most straight hetero romance, I just don't get into. Like, the most recent one I got into is Assistant to the Villain. And that's because it's such a non-traditional straight romance that I actually am enjoying it. Yeah, it's escape from rom-com, like the inherent sex and misogyny that's in a lot of het romance. But yeah, so that to me is the big difference for me, is just generally in like the content of the arts of it and the books of it. And then how addicted to writing am I? So that's a funny question, because anyone who's in the BL Palace server will know that I spent the first 10 days of February writing 4K words a day, even though I work a full-time job and didn't have time to be doing that, and I did it anyway because I just got obsessed with writing my guide verse fic. So pretty obsessed, I'd say. And in fact, with Hidden, there was a good year I was working on it every single day. I did not miss a single day. I was either writing it, editing it, drawing something for it. I was doing something for my book. Trust me, I was not sleeping those 10 days. There's a reason I stopped. Yes, this is a very good, Spiritory is a really good program. And actually, we'll talk about that a little bit too. And then, what is a ship or trope you want to write someday? What ships are we writing, guys? Or what do we want to write? So weirdly enough, I've never really looked at it in terms of ships and tropes. Or in terms of tropes. I do as ships, not as tropes. A ship I do want to eventually try to write, fanfiction-wise, is Walian. Like, I've never had... I don't have the confidence to write them because, like, they're just so perfect. And I don't want to screw them up. And I love them forever. As you could probably tell by the, if you guys can see it, the Wachung doll that's back here somewhere. I don't know if you can see it or not. But, yeah, I would love to eventually write fic for Walian at some point. Tropes-wise, I actually, like I said, I'm not big on like looking at tropes particularly. I more so look at ships. But usually if someone gives me an idea for a trope to write on, I'll do it or I'll try it. Especially if it's one I think is going to be funny or interesting. That's how I started writing the guide verse one, because someone's like, I want more guide verse. So here we are. And what was supposed to be like a maybe little 5K little story has turned into a 20K multi-chapter still going on story. Because I need help, apparently. You can use them out of the box, but you can modify. Yeah, that is a nice thing with tropes. Like, it's funny, like, I will create something and then figure out what tropes fit it. Except for something like Kingtober, where I will find the tropes and then use those instead. Tips for burning with burnout, finishing last bits of a fic book. Yeah, when we get to writing, we can definitely touch on that. And actually, let me... Because I know after the sprint, I will totally forget handling burnout. LOL, you don't. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. There is ways. There are ways, guys. Trust. All right. So, who would like to do a sprint? Who wants to do some writing? I picked the perfect time, huh? Well, on the forum I did for this panel, I had a question on there of how much time you guys want to spend during the sprints, and y'all got some jokes. Yes, there was a forum. I put it in the discussion thread for this, but I stopped taking more questions and responses last night. And yes, this is what I got back on how much time we should spend in the sprints. So I'm just going to cut us in the middle at 10 minutes. Oh, come back. I'm going to cut us in the middle at 10 minutes. Since that seems to be a nice middle ground between most of the options. Because legitimately, I think y'all are trolls. And we got an even score on all of them, so hopefully this will do. So let's go ahead and do our first sprint. That way I could give my voice a break, get some writing done. Never thought I'd actually use Etsy for a BL sprint. Happy though. Right? I love using this for sprints. I need to more often, honestly. But all right, guys, we're going to start our first sprint of the panel. 10 minutes. Let's see how much work we can get done in that time. Let's hit it. those absolutely do count. Yeah, sprints don't necessarily have to just be for the actual writing. I've seen people do research as part of sprints, take notes, do writing, do drawing. It's what the sprints are, whatever you need them to be. How did we do, everyone? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I've done editing during sprints. 520 words, they edited most of a chapter, ate lunch, nice. Excellent job, everyone. Good job. $176 words down. Good going. I got 160. I've reached a weird part of my guide verse fic where I don't know where to take it from here. Because I painted myself into a bit of a corner. Hey, not many words is not 0. Yeah, the sprints seem to go so much faster, honestly. It doesn't matter what the timer says, it still feels like a minute. Alright, so let's talk BL, guys. So, the first 2 questions we have is, what was your gateway BL, and did any BL inspire you? And at least for me, the answer is the same. Gravitation. Gravitation was my introduction to BL, actually. Hello, Shuichi. Yes. So, Gravitation was my introduction to BL just in general. And I fell in love with it as soon as I started reading it. And to this day, it is still one of my little guilty pleasures, despite it being very early 2000s, late 90s coded. And yeah, as far as did it inspire me, yes and no. So it wasn't the story itself or anything, it was Shuichi himself that did, at least design-wise. A big part of Ash's initial original design was based off Shuichi. Not necessarily in personality or interest or anything like that, because they are vastly different characters, and even were back then, but just physical design-wise, I based him a lot on Shuichi. Yes, Yuriyuki also, funny enough, he inspired Faisal's design a lot in some way, and even in some ways that was not intended as well, but again, not personality wise or anything, just physical design wise. Yes, the human gravitation was so good. And in fact, I wrote 2 or 3 gravitation fanfics back in the day. Short ones, they were like one-shots, but yeah, so gravitation was it for me. Yeah, that was a sad thing. It's like, there was stuff getting lost. Man, now I kind of want to go read Gravitation. Maybe later. But yeah, so gravitation. And if you look at my early drawings of Ash, you could definitely see Shuichi in them. Hopefully less now than before, but still. I haven't separated that far from his original design. And then this was a question I found really interesting, so I wanted to spend a little time on it because it's something I've seen come up before. Have you ever faced any dismissal of your work because of the assumption that because a woman wrote it, it is less than when compared to BL written by a man? And I am curious to know other people's experiences with this as well. I personally I better not do that, my dog will go off. Knock on wood, haven't yet. Yet being the key word. At least not personally. I have, however, seen discourse around the idea that there is something, I don't want to say inferior, but something there's fetishization when it's a woman writing it versus a man writing it. Now, where someone's opinion falls on that will probably vary, realistically. I've seen Discord, but thankfully never gotten it. Same. Yes, I love seeing narratives written by queer men. Truly. People think they can tell the difference reading it. Yup, homophobic's favorite word. And I'm sure probably to some degree, some people probably can tell somewhat of a difference. Like, think the whole idea of, like, this woman was clearly written by a man type of thing. But realistically, for a well-written story, can you really tell the difference? And this also gets into the idea of, like, different demographics, different audiences. Like, when I wrote Hidden, I tried to write it from the standpoint, I'm not trying to pretend I'm anything but an ace woman, cisgender woman. I'm not pretending to be anything different, that's what I am. So my audience is probably going to be other people like me, or I hope more than just that enjoys. I hope everyone enjoys it. I hope everyone falls in love with it. But at least for me, I wrote it very intentionally in some regard of trying to let the characters stay true to themselves while still being respectful of the fact that they are part of multiple demographics I'm not a part of. And there's just no getting around the fact I'm writing about something that I don't have any personal lived experience in. But I think for someone writing something like that, if the vibe and you're respectful of it and you're being weird about it, what's wrong with that? Not necessarily about the writer being male versus female, but I still laugh about this one comment I saw that was like, you can tell who actually likes men by whether or not they mention balls. And it's like, okay, yeah, that one is, I think. LMAO. Besides, no one says shit when a straight man writes. Exactly. I've never heard discourse about men shouldn't write Yuri. Like, dudes, please. Take so many seats. Yeah, no, personally, I've thankfully never gotten dismissed because of this. At least knowingly. I'm sure there's probably some people that have dismissed my work because of it and just haven't said anything. I'm sure that's probably happened. Like, I don't know who all is on Blue Sky, but I have had people block me on there, and I'm assuming it's because of something related to my BL writing or to something along those lines. I think I even got added to a pro shipper block list or something like that. I don't know. I'm still confused by that to this day. But either way, I'm sure there's people that are like, eh, because I'm a woman, and that's fine. They don't have to read it. Another reason I love being in my service is if I hear that rhetoric, I just start laughing. Honestly, though, I wonder if the fact that BL as a genre tends to stay outside of the normie sphere helps writers just not receive a lot of the really bad and bigoted takes, because the really bigoted people tend to dismiss the genre as a whole. It's just not. It's just only internal bigots. I could see that, actually. Like, it's almost like self-selecting those out. Almost. I could see that. We have not yet. dream. And let me actually... Yeah, which we are actually going to touch on that in just a minute, because our next slide is for writing. As a lesbian, I'm not the target demographic for MM, the game enjoy. It's not a bad thing. There's so much reality. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there probably is fundamentally a difference between BL and yaoi, manhwa, and then like Western gay romance. Like, just like there's a difference between romance novels versus romance anime versus romance in, like, it's all romance, but it's different. It's a different demographic. Like, the Harlequin romances are going to appeal to a different subset of readers than, say, something like Assistant to the Villain. Likewise, some of these other gay romances may appeal to a demographic that, say, Have an Official's Blessing wouldn't, or Hidden Report wouldn't, or any of our stories wouldn't, because it's just different audiences. Yes, variety is good. Blame capitalism and corporatization of previously small web internet for people without front lobes in the conversations they're not ready for, along with encouraging homophobes and progressive communities to intermingle, but whatever. I could see that, though. I could absolutely see that, because it's forcing communities that would never normally otherwise naturally come together, realistically. Yeah, I get so bored of the same thing over and over again. That's why I stopped reading those Harlequin novels when I was younger, because I got bored. And then I learned about BL, and then it was game over from there anyway, so... But then I just recently learned this weekend that there's Harlequin BL novels, so I'm like, what? I would think on writing characters you aren't part of them, to be honest, as long as it's communicated that you aren't that one trying to write them in a light and are open to listening and such, it should be fine. As long as you aren't trying to say your opinion, this character represents all of X minority, you should be fine. Yeah, and that's my feeling. Like, I'll actually use Ash as an example, because he's a really good example of writing completely outside of my lived experience. He is a cisgender man who is bisexual, half Japanese, lives in a different country than me, in a completely different field of work than me. All of this coming together to say he is exactly everything I'm not. And my approach in writing a character like him has been doing a lot of research. I don't want to say a lot of research, but some research on certain things. Like, I've done a lot of research around, like, things in Japan, since that's where he lives. I've done research around relationships and sexual things, since there's sex in the books. Different things like what are cultural norms that he would maybe know that I don't? What are things he would maybe consider weird or icky that I wouldn't, because I'm just a white bread American over here? Things like that, where am I going to get it all right? No, because I don't live there. I don't have that lived experience. Can I still treat it respectfully and not treat it like I know it all and that he is the embodiment of it all? Absolutely. I'm sure there's people that disagree, but again, maybe my book just isn't for that. So, let's talk about writing. I feel like it's a game, and it's kind of frustrating when the popular stuff is totally disconnected from gay culture, and that can be really obvious in small details, coming untouched versus hands-free. But that's more about research and such, as you say. Absolutely. Yes, writing rocks. I love writing. All right, so writing, how do you pace yourself? So this is going to be a good question to wrap into the question of how to handle burnout. Because I'm going to touch on burnout here, but really when we talk about burnout, it applies to writing, it applies to editing, it applies to publishing, it applies to all of it. Pacing yourself. Don't be me, kids. Don't try to write 4,000 words a day when it's a full-time job. Just don't. I mean, if you can do it, great. Part of it is knowing what is your limits. And for me, it's having to learn how much can I write and still feel good. Yeah, if I didn't need to eat and sleep, I'd be great. So for me, like when I was doing NaNoWriMo before it completely went to shit, writing 1,667 words a day was hard. I'd do it for those 30 days, but by the end of it, I'd be burnt. I'd be completely burnt out. There's a reason why writing 4K words for 10 days at the beginning of this month burnt me out. Don't recommend. So it really is learning what your limits are. What is your pace that you need to? There's some people that say 50 words a day and they're good. They're done. Some it'll be 1,000. Some it'll be a chapter. Some it'll be whatever random amount that they prefer. Yes, it's being realistic about it. Can I write 2,000 words a day, 4,000 words a day every day? Technically, yeah. Is it going to do me any good? Probably not, because I'm burning myself out. I'm going to be feeling shitty about it. I'm not going to like what I write. Is it more realistic to just say, hey, I'm going to just write however much I feel like writing today for me? Currently, yeah. 1.6K words a day didn't feel too hard, but once you survive Nano, you start reconsidering everything. Exactly. Oh, I got pays for yeah, like, and legitimately it is, and when it comes to pacing yourself and addressing burnout, here's a key thing. Stop comparing yourself to others. That's why I burnt myself earlier this month, is because I did the thing, I compared myself to others, and I felt like I had to win and got competitive, and then I burnt myself out. So not only did I not win that, there's nothing to win, to start with, I burnt myself out, and I actually hurt myself more doing that than if I had just said, I'm just going to write as much as I can, as much as I want to, and just see where I ended up. And I wrote less this month than I probably would have if I hadn't done that. I know, right? How mean am I calling us all out like this? Yeah, stamina fluctuates. We're not machines. We're not computers. There's going to be days that maybe it'll be rough to get 50 words. It'll be days where 5,000 comes like nothing. Yes, the group pressure was strong, man. How do you stop doing that? I want to like pull up that video of the therapist that says stop it. No, stop it over. Some of it, what helps me to stop doing that, I say this as if I literally didn't do it early this month. Something that helped me was recognizing it's not helping anybody. It wasn't helping me. It wasn't helping them. It wasn't helping my story. And a lot of this is just learning myself. I'm someone who does a lot of self-reflection, guys. Like, that's probably because I am a therapist, I do. So when I start recognizing I'm doing something that isn't working for me, or like it feels off or it feels bad, I already have built in that ability to like sit down, like, why isn't this working? So for me, I was able to recognize I'm doing this, it's burning me out, I don't want to write, I don't want to do anything. So I can recognize I need to slow down. So it's a lot of just changing how I talk to myself. That's how I get myself to stop, is changing how I talk to myself. Because I'll be like, I have to do this. I gotta do this. I have to win. I have to change that verbiage to myself. Because if we think about it in terms of like, would we put down someone else for not writing 5,000 words a day? Probably not. So why do it to ourselves? Oh no, exam season, forget that. You have no time after exam season. But yeah, addressing burnout and addressing that is literally just pacing yourself. And when we do get burnt out, because it's going to happen, it does happen. We sometimes call this hitting the wall, or even writer's block could be considered a form of burnout. It's recognizing it's okay to take a break. Put it down. It will be there when you come back. Like, legitimately, one of the healthiest things I did was after a full year of writing Hidden and working on Hidden. I literally was not joking. I touched that book at least once a day, potentially hours a day. And I finally, for Kinktober, I stopped. I put it away. I put Hidden away, and I didn't touch it for 2 months. I was working on other things still, but I didn't touch Hidden. When I realized that wasn't, and I ended up more burnt out after that, because then I did NaNoWriMo, so I spent 2 months of writing every day, other things, where I had to put writing down entirely for a couple days. I think for like a week or two, I put everything away and just put it down and just chilled. So some of it, when it does come to burnout and pacing, is just slowing down. Our stories will be there. When we come back and we feel refreshed and we've taken care of ourselves and taken care of our bodies and our hearts and our minds and all that good stuff, it will be there when we come back. How do you start again after a break and avoid working on something unrelated instead? To avoid the whole 1,000 whips issue? I don't know. You're asking the wrong person, because I have about a bazillion. Realistically, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a lot of whips. Honestly. Originally, I used to be someone who was like, I should just work on one thing at a time, finish that, and move on to the next. And I still am like that to a certain extent. But there can be something very healthy about having multiple. And here's why. And this is actually relating to burnout, relating to pacing. If I'm working on Hidden, and I was starting to feel burnt out on it, and there was a lot of times I did. I just was like, I don't want to work on this anymore. I want to stop. I would switch to a different work in progress. Yeah, it's nice to have something totally different than the one big project to air out the brain. That's where a lot of these AUs I'm writing came from. Like, I started writing the Omegaverse AU after I read a Modal Omegaverse fanfiction. And I got an idea for an Omegaverse fic for my boys. So I stepped away from Hidden to work on the Omegaverse story. And then once I got that out of my brain and felt better, I went back to Hidden. Which is why, like, actually then, like, Kinktober, I would step away from Hidden, work on all the short stories that's eventually going to become Case File Shadowfire, which is going to be the second book, eventually. When I got bored of those two, I have like the Guideverse AU I'm working on. Like, I have all these different things that if I get bored or burnt out on one, I can move to something else for a while. If I want to keep writing. If I just want to chill from writing entirely, that's cool too. But being able to just go back and forth between those work in progresses isn't necessarily a bad thing. Something I do find helpful is writing down my ideas, even if I don't write them out. Like, if I don't write the story, I write the idea down. So at least it's out of my head for the time being, so I can go back to what I've already done and then go to these new ideas later. But I'm also someone who gets brain worms, so if I have an idea, I have to get it out or it will bother me for days. Like, I have already written like 3 or 4 scenes for the final book of the series. Not because I'm writing the book currently, but because I had a scene idea and I went, shit, and had to write it to get it out of my head. Yeah, junk drawer of ideas is amazing, honestly. That's how I figure out half of the stuff I needed to for my series. Alright, what advice do you have about starting to write when you're scared of having your words seen? So this is why I wanted to wait on talking about the streaming and writing aspect. Because I knew this question was in here. Where's our buddy that was asking about streaming? Hi. Okay, so advice as far as streaming and writing, or even just in general about having your words seen. So there's a couple things at play here, and I'm curious how everyone else handles this. For those that stream writing or those who post or writing things of that nature. When it comes to being scared of having your words seen, I'm going to actually split this in two for a moment here. Because on the first part, of writing when you're scared to have them seen, why does anyone need to see them? I have a lot of stories that I've written that no one has ever seen. They just sit on my hard drive and chill there, and that's probably where they're always going to stay because they aren't for anyone else. I've had stories that I wrote and then immediately deleted it, and not even I can see it again. So a good starting point can be just write and then delete it. If it's something you truly don't want anybody to ever be able to see, just get rid of it. It's okay. Now, if we are talking in terms of wanting people to be able to show your work to other people, to stream it like I have before, and like I'm sure some of you have, or posting on places like Royal Road or CG or AO3 and places like that. So when it comes to streaming, I'm someone that on stream, I don't show my work, usually. Not because of any particular, like, I'm not afraid of it getting stolen or anything off my streams. It's just, for me personally, I don't work well under pressure having the words on screen where people can see where I'm writing. So personally, when I'm streaming it, that's actually part of why I use Spirit City the way I do, is I can have that on screen instead of my work. Or I could still do the co-writing, I can still do the sprinting with people, I can still talk about it, but it's not visible. But obviously I put my work out there where anyone can get it and do whatever they want with it, technically. Some of this comes to a question of, how do you protect your work? We reached a state of being constantly online and online social lecturing that you have to make everything publicly created. But it's not necessarily at all. You don't have to, because others do. Yes, and AI is actually something. AI scares me in a lot of different ways. But I actually am going to touch on the AI thing in a little bit here. So I won't put a pin on AI, but when it comes to actually posting stuff where people can see it, some of this does require building a thick skin. Like, it requires being able to say, hey, I know not everyone's going to enjoy this. There are going to be people that enjoy it, though, because if I do, someone else will too. So some of it is being willing to take the leap. Like, when I posted Hidden to Royal Road, I was terrified. And mind you, I had been posting fanfiction to fanfiction on net for a solid, probably 7 years, 6, 7 years, as a teenager, and I didn't bat an eye at that. But the idea of posting Hidden up for an audience to read terrified me. And yet here we are with Hidden up on multiple websites, published as a physical book, as an ebook. I have no idea if anyone's bought it yet. I'm afraid to find out. But part of it's going to be expecting that there's going to be people that like it, people that don't, and that's okay. And yes, it's really looking at who is your audience, who's your ideal audience. Like, for me, it's people like me or people like you guys that are here at CitrusCon. Those are my people. Those are the people I'm aiming for. I'm not aiming for traditional romance lovers. I'm not aiming even for the traditional gay romance people. It is people into more like anime and light novels and danme and things of that nature is where my book fits. My one ideal reader is me. Absolutely, 100%. And that's the way I wrote Hidden too, by the way. I wrote it to be what I wanted it to be. I didn't even consider who the audience was originally. It was just, what do I want it to be? What do I want it to include? It was only after I started editing it, I have to actually go, wait, I have to consider the audience? Shit. Me, myself, and I, the audience. But yes, but if we're asking about like stuff like AI, how to save it from AI or stuff of that nature, we'll touch on that part a little bit later. But just as far as general showing it, it's just taking it step by step. Maybe starting with beta readers, maybe starting with friends, maybe starting in smaller writing circles and growing from there. Because that's where I started, was like having friends read it, to then introducing it to some other people, to then eventually I introduced it to Royal Road, and now VL Palace cannot get me to stop talking about them. So I'm writing a story I wanted to read because it feels like no one else is. Exactly. Who was it? It was one of the panels yesterday about that if you don't write it, no one else will. Or if you don't create it, no one else will. I feel is very accurate. Yeah, small like-minded Discord server, which totally there's no ulterior motives there, right? I feel like someone could create it while I'm writing it. And that's true. Realistically, it's true. Like, someone could take your idea and do something with it. But here's the neat thing, even if they did, it's still not going to be the same. I bet you if I gave you all the information I have on my main characters and the story and the background, and everyone in here wrote this hidden report, each of them would read different. Some would take it more horror route. Some would take it more of more crime procedural route. Someone else would probably lean more into the erotica side of it. Someone else would probably make it more into horror. And it probably work really well as that, actually. Some more into drama, and they'll read different. Of course, this is also getting into copyright and plagiarism and all that, which is a totally different beast, which if that does happen, you have recourse and stuff, but realistically, it's not going to be the same. All right, so I know we're getting a bit of the weeds, and I know we probably want to get to the next sprint as well. What programs do you use to write? So I am actually going to post in the discussion thread for this panel afterwards some links and everything. But the programs I use for my writing. Originally, I used Dabble Writer to write in, but I don't use it anymore, just because I found another program I liked more. Now I use Noveler for my actual writing, so like storing my writing, doing the actual physical writing, storing my character information, all of that I put into Noveler. I use, for keeping track of events in my timeline of my books, I use Ion Timeline. Really good program, but it's a paid program. So is Noveler. So I use that to keep track of all of my timeline stuff, where everything is in relation to each other. And I've done that for all the books. So like I have all the different events, all the short stories, everything on this timeline, so I can see how they relate to each other. For editing wise, I use Noveler's built-in editor or proofreader. But when it comes to that, I actually, for beta reading and collaboration, I use Ellipsis. So I'll toss it on there. That way I can toss it to beta readers. They can make their own draft of it, leave their comments, all of that good stuff. I love Ellipsis for that. I don't like writing in it. I love it for the editing, the beta reading, comments, and the collaboration side of writing, but not for the actual writing itself. That's me personally, though. What do you guys use? I'm seeing LibreOffice, Obsidian, Scrivener, Stimulite, Marker. And here, and I will actually, while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to actually just right now, because it's literally on my mind, I'm going to go into the discussion thread and just put all those links now. into my discussion thread because, well, I was thinking about it. So that way, you guys, if you want to go check them out, you can. Atticus. I used to use Google Docs. So I did used to use Google Docs for like beta reading and editing purposes or co-editing. And I stopped using them because of the AI stuff and the issues with AI and all of that. So I stopped using Google Docs. But yeah, so those are the programs I use personally. Yeah, that's why Ellipsis was like a godsend when I learned about it. And then how do you stop yourself from editing while writing? So, thank you, Andrea. I didn't even think of linking it. So this one is a double-edged sword. I'm someone who does, if I'm editing while I'm writing, I won't write because I will get so lost in the weeds. What I will sometimes do, and I haven't done this in a while, I need to do it again actually, because I'm getting lost in the weeds on my guide verse, is blind writing. And for those that don't know what that is, it is effectively a form of writing where you set your screen or you set your program to where you cannot see your words. You can't see what you're writing at all. Back in the old days of when I would use Microsoft Word as a teenager, what I would do is I would literally set the font color to white because we didn't have dark mode back then. That way I couldn't see it. And then I would just write. And then when I finished doing my blind writing, I would turn it all back to black font so I could see it. And yes, it was typo hell. And yes, typos are for editing. Yeah, you're sending your writings into the void, basically. And it is yeah, stream of consciousness is a good way of looking at it. But yeah, really it is just putting your words out there into that void and pulling them back out when you're done writing. Because you don't need to edit. You just need something to edit. And if we can't see it, we can't judge it. See, I never thought doing the super tiny font. That's a good idea. Thank you for the reminder, everyone. Hydrate. To try the tiny font because I haven't found any place that does really good for blind writing yet. Alcohol or why not both? But yes, I would try blind writing. Really good. As far as if you can't do the blind writing, honestly, I'm not sure how to stop yourself from editing. For me, it's just having to take a step back. That's usually when I'll switch gears. If I start finding myself editing more than writing, I'll usually switch to a different project because at that point I know I'm being super critical of the one I'm working on for some reason. I'll switch to something else that I feel a little less critical or serious about to reset. And I find for me that helps. Yeah, that's why the sprints are really helpful because you don't have time to just sit and waffle the whole time, even though I still do. What they don't tell you is that you don't have to edit. What's funny is I used to not edit at all. Back in my fanfiction.net days, I would literally write my story, go good enough, and post it unedited, completely raw, like nothing. Typos and all, just right on there, and thought nothing of it. Couldn't be me nowadays. But alright guys, I'm hearing it in my voice a little bit. Yes, fanfiction.net was the wild, wild west. The problem is I don't trust my edits. So we will actually touch on that when we talk about editing here after our next sprint. Because I got you. I have the same issue. What do I know? I'm just the guy who wrote it, right? All right, guys, are we ready for another sprint? I definitely feel it in my voice. I think we're ready for another sprint. We feeling ready, y'all? Yes, openers definitely do benefit a lot from revisions. When I tell you how many times I edited the beginning of Hidden. See, I like hearing other people read my stuff out loud. I wish more people would read my stuff out loud because I love hearing it. Because it's different hearing it in someone else's voice than my own. Here, we're gonna put them outside now. All right, guys, let's go ahead and I'm gonna start our next sprint. We'll give it 10 minutes, and when we come back, we will talk about editing. All right. How did you do on that sprint, everyone? $406 words, huh? Not bad, not bad. I'll be honest, I don't know how many I wrote. It doesn't have to be a ton. It just has to be some. Let me see, can I figure out how many I actually wrote? Let's see. Yeah, it was probably like 300 or something, I'd say. That's not bad. Not bad at all. But all right, who wants to talk about editing? You know, our favorite thing to do, right? Whose part of writing, whose favorite part is editing? Had to edit a 100K story, I hated it. Trust me, I feel that. Hidden is like 160 something words, K words, and it was an experience. Editors just looking around like, huh? All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about editing. Have you ever had to remove scenes or parts that you really wanted to keep but didn't fit the final story? I know it's 2 or 3 people asked this, and I just condensed it all into one question. The answer is yes. So in revising Hidden, the beginning of it actually went through multiple forms. Like originally it had a prologue, which for anyone who has read it, is looking to read it, you will find it no longer does. So I actually the original prologue for it I ended up nixing entirely. And then I added a different prologue later on, which now has also gotten nixed. Though the second prologue is actually getting shuffled into case file because it's a good scene and it's a good chapter. It's just it did not fit being a prologue for Hidden. It feels like it should be more like it could be more like a standalone story than it needed to be a prologue, because Hidden doesn't need a prologue. So, and then there's been other scenes where I've had to look at, like, does the scene actually work? Does it serve a purpose? Is there ways I can serve the same purpose with other scenes that are more established? So, like, even the ending of Hidden, there's actually 2 scenes I removed from the ending. Because they were just kind of rehashing the same thing. They weren't really adding anything. They were just an excuse to show different characters when it didn't need it. Which kind of sucked, actually, because one of the scenes I actually really liked. But this is kind of where the idea of, as they say, kill your darlings comes in. Sometimes we have to get rid of a scene we otherwise like, because it doesn't fit the story. And it doesn't make it a bad scene, it's just maybe it doesn't work for that story. I've had scenes that I put away for something else, or scenes, like I said, that I moved into case file, because they can make it into a short story easy enough that it didn't need to be in Hidden. What do you do when you're terrible at editing and grammar? I believe one of you had asked how to deal with editing when maybe English isn't, like, in this case, English isn't your first language, or like you're just terrible at grammar. And ironically, I realized I forgot we're going to ignore that. And this one is complicated. So it's a twofold thing. Because the easy answer is go get a proofreader or use something like Pro Writing Aid or Grammarly or things like that to fix it. Which is an option. Do not get me wrong, but they do use AI in some regards. So I'm not going to pretend that's not an option. That being said, those are not going to help you get better at grammar. Those are not going to help you get better at recognizing errors or at being able to edit. Yeah, I don't use Grammarly or any of those because of what I'm about to say. Getting better at editing and grammar comes down to doing the work. It is having other people read it who maybe are better at grammar and things of that nature. It's using proofreaders, spell check, and really sitting down with it. Yes, absolutely, 100%. Versus if you have other people read it, have someone help you edit it or beta read it. Yes, a beta reader is worth more than any program every time. So I'm going to actually loop in what are good programs for editing into this question of what to do when you're terrible at it. I have yet to find a program better than a beta reader. I will use things like spell check for spelling, but you need to use multiple because one spell check would catch something and the others wouldn't catch it. So I've had to use multiple. I've used the one in Google, the one in Novel, or the one in Ellipsis. Like I've used different ones and they all caught different things. If you're using something like Word or Google Docs or LibreOffice, they all probably have a spell check. But really, when it comes to grammar, it really is about learning the rules and how to break them. It's having those other people reading it so they can help you see where are the errors. Why is it broken? Why is it not working? Because like honestly, like even when because I did used to use Pro Writing Aid. I did before I learned about the AI. It's ties with AI and everything else. And yeah, it takes out style. It misinterprets. It adds things that doesn't need to be added. It takes out things that need to be in there. I remember I wish I had saved some of the more nonsensical suggestions it had. Versus when I used a beta reader to go, hey, can you read this story and tell me what's wrong with it or what's good about it and point to me to what needs to be fixed grammar-wise or wording-wise. I got more out of it, personally. Yeah, most programs fail at sentence structure. Because sentence structure can be so different from writer to writer. It's insane. The only thing to be careful with using those brackets is remember to go back and fix them. Or to actually do stuff with them. Because if we forget, now we have brackets. We also want to remember too, if we don't have enough detail in those brackets of what's supposed to be in there, we're apt to forget what we were going to put in those brackets and then we have to figure it out. Ask me how I know. How you structure a sentence changes the vibe of the readers. Exactly. I was just talking about that with someone that I'm beta reading for currently, and ooh, I got finished beta reading her story later today, in fact. And sentence structure is huge. Something as simple as a short sentence versus a long sentence can change the tone of a paragraph completely. Completely changes it. How much detail are in those sentences changes it. The words we use in those sentences change it. Like there's so much stuff in there. Yeah, short sentences are better for action or like high tension, high anxiety scenes and moments. But yeah, as far as programs for editing, the good old-fashioned up here, mainly. Beta readers, writing groups, like BL Palace, which I'm gonna shout them out again because I love that server. Even joining smaller servers like my personal one, going on there and asking for feedback or help from people in those type of servers. Like, it's just finding your groups of writing groups and your people. BL Palace promo the panel, yeah. Yeah, and like if it is a case, like let's say you're writing in English and it's not your first language, having someone who is a first language speaker of that language read it and point out where things maybe don't make sense or the syntax is weird. And vice versa. English is my first and only language, but let's say I did know German too as a second language and I'm trying to write in German, maybe I would throw it at someone whose German is their first so they could be like, hey, the syntax is weird. You're writing it like it's in English when you can't do that in German. BL Palace is a Discord server that has a lot of BL writers in it, including myself. I have leaned on people there quite a bit for feedback, advice, support, doing writing sprints with each other, because honestly, there is no program in this world that could do more than what a good writers group can. Truly. And like once Case File, I have all the short stories written and edited for the first time. I'm going to toss it to them people there and be like, please beta read these. All 75k words of this, please just beta read this for me. Because there's a lot more to get out of having other humans edit and help read and revise than a computer. Oh yeah, absolutely. I jumped from server to server trying to find my place until I found the palace. That's part of why I made my server, even though it's not active basically at all. That's part of why I made it, so I could try and get into or build a writing group of people and build a really good writers group. I once got kicked out of a German BL writing server for not taking part in the server events and being inactive for a time. What? If I kicked out people out of my server for not being active, there'd be no one in my server. 20 minutes left. Thank you, Andrea. All right. So let me jump ahead here to publishing. So this is the step I'm currently at. Yay! How hard is it to publish and what steps did it take? Of course, we know the obvious, right? We can't publish what doesn't exist, so we have to write. And while we can publish it unedited, we probably don't want to do that. And oh, that reminds me, that story I was going to share with you guys. So, editing wise, being mindful of who we're asking the beta read and who we're asking to edit our stories. As just been pointed out, normal writing servers aren't open to read BL. If a bad beta reader, no beta reader is better than a bad one. No editor is better than a bad one. Yes, we are in Palace and in my server, Celestia Rose. They are both kink-friendly spaces. And yeah, any questions that aren't on here, let's save them for the discussions, right? I will gladly answer them more in there, but we are running short on time, so I want to make sure we're able to cover everything that is on the slides as well. But yeah, so and the reason I mention this about editors in particular is because here is the experience I had with a very bad editor and why I took off nearly a 10-15 year break from writing, or at least working on hidden. I'll say this. So when I was about 19 years old, so this was probably around 2009-ish, I had taken part in an online writing convention. And one of the parts of it was that you could get a 10-minute meeting with an editor, a professional editor, to discuss your book, get some feedback on the idea, things of that nature. Which is all good things, that's great. The reason I mentioned this took place in 2009 is you can imagine the environment in traditional publishing there was at the time around BL writing. So when I introduced Hidden Report to this editor, they explained Ash, explained Faisal, explained the relationship and the plot of this book and everything at the time. Her feedback was not on my writing style. It wasn't on the story idea. It was on Ash having a penis. That you cannot have her feedback as a professional editor is you cannot have a male lead for a romance novel. Let alone a male lead of a romance novel with a male love interest. "19-year-old me had not quite realized that I could tell her to go fuck herself. That someone being a professional in the field of writing does not mean they are the end all be all. But her being a quote unquote authority figure in the field, I put Hidden away. Because even though, of course, I loved yaoi and gravitation, and there was clearly a market for it, clearly. Being from the US, writing to a Western audience, and getting told that by an editor that there's no market for this, demotivated me completely. I totally erased all of my motivation. And my confidence. It wasn't motivation, it was confidence. So I stopped working on it. Until 2022, where I said, fuck that, I'm gonna do it anyway. And now, look where I'm at now. But that is why, when it comes to our beta readers, it comes to our editors, it comes to anything like that, be mindful of who we're hiring or bringing on. And if they're not a good fit, whether it's just because it's personality, style, or because they're homophobic bitches, don't listen to them. Find the ones that are a good fit. But yes, I will get off my soapbox for that. Let's talk publishing. So we've written the story, we've edited the story. Now we want to publish it. So this is where there's multiple answers to this, honestly. Don't ask me what the traditional publishing route is. I decided not to go that route because of that experience I had. I didn't want to experience that again, even now that I'm more knowledgeable. I didn't want to have, and from my understanding, traditional publishing, like, there's a lot of downsides to it. I was like, why would I do that? Yeah, if you can't find a market for a BL, that's a skill issue. It really is. But my experience comes into self-publishing. That's where all my expertise, quote unquote, my experience comes in. I started out publishing Hidden Report on Royal Road, AO3, Scribble Hub. And the only steps were is to do it. To take it, well, on Royal Road you have to like get it approved and everything, but to just put it out there. Put it on the websites, create your little covers, and put it on the websites. Set a schedule. Respond to comments, things of that nature. So that's the quote-unquote easy version of self-publishing, is doing it as a web novel on sites like that. But even then, it's having to keep in mind audience demographic. Royal Road is not, I'm not going to say it's hostile to BL content. It's not friendly to it. And by that, I mean there's an audience for it there. It's small. And growing, because we're taking over Royal Road. Yeah, like, it's a great platform. And it has a growing BL audience there. Because it has, like Maya is saying, it has a strong reader culture there. It's a great site. I love it. I'm going to keep posting all my stuff on there. But you're not necessarily going to get the feedback and the readers that you would other places. AO3 is probably my weakest place to post. Not because of being BL, but because it's original fiction. But I'm still posting on AO3 because I love AO3. Scribble Hub is probably the second best I've had so far. But again, it has more of a BL presence there. The best place to be able to post, and it is selective in letting people post on it, so keeping that in mind, is CG. the garden. Like I have been trying to get hidden on there since November. November. And it only got accepted a month ago. If that tells you anything. So a site like that is BL focused is going to be your bread and butter. It's going to be the best place to go where it is focused. But again, a place like the garden, it's selective on what they allow on it. Yes, thank you. And Hidden actually is releasing on there starting tomorrow. So it is very translated works focused, but there is original fiction on it. My book is going up on it starting, the first chapter goes up tomorrow. A writer friend of mine started posting her novel last month, and it's original OG English written novel. They're taking original novels. You should go read her novel too. It's called Mars on the Last Furlong. Mars Goes Quiet on the Last Furlong. You should go read it. It's so good. But yeah, so Hidden's actually going up on CG as well. So if you can't afford to buy the book or just don't want to, you can read it on there too. Now, as far as self-publishing, as in the physical book and the ebook, the steps for that were a little bit more complicated. I had to format, because you have to have a cover, a spine, a back cover. So like I commissioned an artist to create them, and that wasn't cheap because I wanted a specific style and method, and I did not want to risk someone using AI. So I put a lot of money on my cover. You need to format the inside of the book, the chapters, the page numbers, like everything, which is another cost unless you do it yourself. And are we at our 10 minutes?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No, you are absolutely fine. Thank you for the
left.
reminder.
Yeah.
So, formatting, both for the ebook and for paperback, totally different things for being able to, because what they look like in both formats is very, very different. So you have to get formatting done, either paying someone else or to do it yourself. Things of that nature. The way it looked like for me was I formatted it for ebook, I formatted it for the paperback, and then I went on Ingram Spark and Draft to Digital. I put them on Ingram Spark for both the ebook and the paperback, and then I went on Draft to Digital to do the ebook, just to have an alternate source for the ebook, where they will take care of like getting it to, or making it available to bookstores, making it available to independent distributors, making it available to me to print as the author, things of that nature. Duck Print Press, is that one your experience with? This was made with fanfic writers who want to get their stuff out in mind. Oh, that's cool. Let me pull that link for myself so I can go check it out. Yeah, so, and then one of the questions was, where do you have small batches made? So you can use, I believe, Ingram Spark to do the same thing. One I have used previously was the book patch. So I actually, and funny enough, I have it sitting here, weirdly enough. Back when Hidden was in its third draft, I actually did a physical book for it, for editing purposes, so I could read it in a book format using the book patch, where you can order just one book, or you can order 10, 15, you can order 4. A lot of platforms like this, you can usually order smaller batches, but book patch is the one I've used and it went great. Ingram Spark, I just ordered literally a box of my books and it went fine, and it was like 16 books in the box. But I ordered originally just one copy of my book last month, 2 months ago, January, to make sure and double check all of its stuff. So yeah, that was what I would suggest. What should be avoided in self-publishing? Honestly, avoiding any place that is scammy as fuck. Like, the amount of people that I've had contact me like, hey, you something book cover, something do you need a book cover for your book? I'll make it for you, when they're commenting on a post with my book cover on it. And then I go look at their account and it's all AI slop nonsense. Avoid, like, I've had scammy publishers email me since I started publishing online. Like, it's really just doing your due diligence to avoid these scammy companies and people, and even avoiding things like vanity presses and things of that nature where you're going to be spending more than you're getting out of it, honestly. And then a question that was added like top of the wire was, with AI, with there being AI and all this, should you get work registered before sharing? And this one, so this is where we have the unfortunate reality that AI isn't going away. And I hate it a lot. I refuse to use AI in any of my stuff for any way, shape, or form. But we also cannot get away from the reality that right now, we can't avoid it. Should you register your work before you share it? It's not going to hurt anything. It definitely makes it easier to protect your work. Like, I haven't registered Hidden yet. And I already know, like, my book's been scraped for, like, it's on a site for audiobooks. There's no audiobook for it, guys. I've never made one for it. That I'm having to try and work to get it removed, and I don't think I can. But that's just the reality of the world we live in right now. But as far as, like, protecting your work, do what feels safest for you. If that's registering it, great. If that is sharing it only in certain places, do that. Do what's going to help you to protect your work and to feel secure in that. Because again, your work is yours. The people who learn about you and become fans of your work are going to find you. They're going to stick with you. They're going to find you. Yeah, keep up with copyright laws. All sorts of things. Keep evidence of when you started writing it. That is the one less fact that I still have all my original files and all that for Hidden from 2005, because guess what? That's my proof that this book has been in existence for longer than that AI has existed. Or that probably then people that would be scamming it have existed. So making sure that we're doing things like that. Keeping up with what sites are we putting it on. If I didn't think Royal Road or The Garden or sites like that were reputable, I wouldn't be putting it on there. Yeah, that's an old method of doing it, is making it, or emailing a copy to yourself, snail mailing a copy to yourself and never opening it, because then you'll have the postal mark with the date on it. All of those old school ways of proving when it was created, beautiful. But all right, we only have a couple more minutes, guys. Do we have any other questions or any other thoughts or anything? I know we've discussed a lot. We did a couple sprints. Honestly, the classics work. How much was it per physical copy? So when I did the original, like in draft 3, this one, it was about $5 a copy. But that said, when I ordered the one copy of Hidden's current version, the one that just went live yesterday for everyone, it was just under $9. It was like $8 and some cents a copy for me, just to print it. And I think when I priced it out in other places, and it came out anywhere between $8 to $10 to print it. How to focus in on one project and ignore all the other hyperfixations? That's a good question, because I'd love to know the answer to that too. Honestly, for me, I've just leaned into my hyperfixation, honestly. I find just giving into it a little bit, playing with my hyperfixation, so it stops becoming or so I can get past the hyperfixation, has helped me. But that's one of those, it's person to person, what works and what doesn't. music can definitely help, setting the mood, setting the location, setting all of that good stuff. Yeah, definitely setting ourselves up for success can be a big thing. I find like even just drawing, if I'm going to work on hidden or any of the other stuff, doing something that puts me in that mindset, like drawing them, reading one of my previous stories for them, looking at fan art for them, helps put me in the mindset of what I want to work on or need to work on. But yeah, and sometimes it's working with our hyperfixations. What are we hyperfixated on? Maybe that's something we want to write about. Maybe that's something we want to incorporate into our stories. Because it's a lot more fun when we're hyperfixated on it. So now let's be real though, hidden report's one of my hypers. All right, guys, it's 1:29. We got to wrap this up. Thank you all so much for coming. I am hosting the Heaven Officials Blessing watch party later today. Hopefully we'll see some of you there. If you have any more questions or just want to chit chat, come find me in the writers discussion or in the co-writing discussion panel thread. I will be around. Thank you all. Have a good rest of your convention. And we'll catch you all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Yeah, please, if follow the thread, or if you like send any message in there, it'll automatically follow it. So yeah, drop any questions, and then you'll have that in your sidebar if you type in there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Bye.